This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. And
All right, 5 o'clock hour begins now. We're out at 6 for Lynx basketball, which means we're going to do away with the top 5 at 5 because Andy Luger was kind enough to join or to get here early, so we might as well take full advantage of it. As Guardsy said, welcome back to the broadcast. I mentioned earlier on your way in that Alan Page is going to join us in studio tomorrow. We, for many years, got him to come to the fair. In the last couple, not so much, although I think it was last year he called in claiming that we didn't invite him. But give me your best Alan Page experience. So I assume there's got to be one or two.
I've got one. So I was a Los Angeles Rams fan growing up, even in New Jersey. And you always rooted for the Giants. That was our team, but they weren't very good. And the Rams were, and I had friends and whatever it was. And Roman Gabriel was my hero.
Oh, yeah. Big, strapping quarterback.
If we're going to talk about K-Tel, we got to talk about Roman Gabriel.
Yes.
And there's a play in the playoff where they get him for a safety. Alan Page and Carl Eller get him for the safety. And it's very controversial because Gabriel wrote a book about that season, which I have, called Player of the Year, 1969. And they drop him. He swears he stopped on the 1 yard line, and it changed the game. Moved to Minnesota in 1992. I'm at a party, and there's Alan Page. And I've been waiting to ask this question. So I walk up to him. I said, "You don't know me," and this and that. I'm a lawyer. And I said, "So in that game, there's this safety." He looks at me. He goes, "He was in the end zone."
Didn't miss a beat.
Didn't miss a beat. Just looked at me like, "What else you got?" I was like, "Thank you very much."
No place to go.
No, I'm done.
There's no negotiating that's going to go on. Well, at least you got him to answer, because half our challenge is I try to get him to talk about football stuff, and he's like, "Okay, I guess we can talk about the football." I go, Alan, we know you moved on. We know you did a couple of other things, but still, it's all part of the deal. So I think he's actually softened on that in more recent years, where he's more willing to talk football than he was back 10, 15 years ago. But we'll enjoy chatting with him tomorrow. All right. Part of what brings you back is you happen to catch part of the conversation we had the day we had Dan Wetzel on, who's an investigative reporter for ESPN. And for those who didn't hear him or know the story he's written, I think it was dated August 10. It's gotten a lot of attention. And it's basically the story of sextortion when it comes to young athletes, many of them male high school athletes, and basically someone pretending to be a college girl starts a flirtation online. It gets ramped up little by little. I'll send you a photo. Now I want you to send me a photo. And what ends up happening, of course, is we find out that, well, this wasn't a girl in college or a woman in college at all. It's a group of individuals, some of them from out of the country, trying to get money, threatening these kids that if they don't come across with the money they're looking for, not huge amounts by modern standards, but money that they don't have access to, they're going to spread word of the photo that was sent. And in the worst case scenario, we have, including the lead individual in this piece, Jordan DeMay, he ends up killing himself. He becomes so distraught with the threat. And you heard a lot of this, and you immediately had texted me with another tentacle of this, that you have a lot of experience with it. So I'll just open the floor and let you start wherever you want about what connected you, what resonated with you about what Wetzel said, and where you have taken that story previously when you were U.S. Attorney.
So I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, you see the worst of humanity, and in all different forms. When I was a young prosecutor, first sex trafficking case I ever did was in 1989 in Brooklyn. And I saw young women smuggled into the United States from Colombia and forced into trafficking. So I've been living with this kind of crime for a long time. All prosecutors do. When I became U.S. Attorney the first time under President Obama in 2014, having been away for a while, I come back to learn about the online crimes and harms against children that didn't exist in the 80s and 90s when I was a prosecutor. And so I'm looking at cases that are all over the map, horrific, what people will do to children. And we're prosecuting them. And then I learn about sextortion. You know, extortion is a terrible crime in any form because the person believes they're trapped. I've been extorted. I'm trapped. There's no way out. You got to give the person what they want. And quite frankly, they always want more. And so either you go to the police or you run away or something. Now you take that down to a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old. And what we first started seeing when I was U.S. Attorney under President Obama was not the Nigerian scams, but the local scams, where a local guy would pretend to be a girl and ensnare young men. These, you know, you call them perverts. Predators is really the more modern term because that's what they are. And they're looking for ways to take advantage of young men. And this is so horrific because you then start to meet with these kids and their parents and their teachers, and you hear their stories over and over and over again. Some don't make it. Some do commit suicide, but even the ones who don't are just scarred for life in terrible ways. But they're telling you their story, and some of them go beyond the trading of the pictures and the threats of, if you don't give me more pictures, I'll send them out to your friends. That's the extortion. It then takes on a life of its own often, and we saw this both the last time I was U.S. Attorney and this time, where it moves on to videos. Because one of the things I heard you and Dan and others talking about was, a picture's one thing, and maybe you can teach a kid that you can get over a picture. A video's a different deal, because that's far more explicit.
A video, so in some cases you're talking about a video of an act with the individual who's doing the extorting, correct?
There's two ways. It usually starts with the person doing the extorting says to the kid, great photos, back and forth, I want you to put on a video and do this for me.
Gotcha.
And show me yourself doing this. And I'll show you one, and back and forth. And it's also a lot of girls, too. So it's not just male athletes.
Just males.
And perhaps sometimes the ones with the young girls are really the most horrific because of what they're telling them to do. And it's harmful. And it's hard to even talk about. So you see that. Then the next level where it gets to that's sort of beyond belief is, hey, I want to meet you. We're flirting online. We're sharing some pictures, maybe a video. Let's get together and let's, actually take this to the next level. And that's where these kids get further ensnared. They'll show up at a park or they'll show up at a place, and it's not a girl. It's a guy. It's a predator. And he shows them what he's got. And he says, if you don't have sex with me, engage in sex acts with me, I'm going to spread this to everybody. And a lot of these kids succumb. And now you're a 14 or 15-year-old kid having sex with a man. You're not a homosexual. You're heterosexual. You're not gay. And you're filled with guilt and shame and just, what the heck do I do? And they don't let up. And that's where it goes to the nth degree. Luckily, some of these kids just run away or, finally find a parent. So when I was listening to you guys talk, I pulled over to the side of the road because I texted you.
Yes,
because
several items you texted.
It's just such an important, thank you for doing it. Thank you for talking about it. It was very hard as U.S. Attorney to get people in Minnesota to really talk about this for obvious reasons.
It's uncomfortable.
It's so important for anybody raising kids or school teachers or administrators to understand how prevalent this is. We had a guy we prosecuted here in Minnesota, had 1,000 victims around the world.
Was this the one you mentioned, the St. Paul man sentenced to 516 months in prison, followed by a lifetime term of supervised release for victimizing more than 1,100 minor girls across the country?
Yes.
It's stunning.
And because he's relentless. This is what he does. And, he has a job. He makes enough money to live on. This is what he does. And these guys are out there. They're not necessarily just in Nigeria. The Nigeria scam is a portion of what's going on. But what's happening locally with guys who just use their phone to ensnare people, and whether it's they want sex or they just want to see videos, whatever it is, and then they don't care what happens to the young men. Just like in the ESPN story, we would hear it over and over again. My life was ruined. My life was ruined. Imagine a parent with a 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid in high school. The world's their oyster. They're stars. They're lovely. And all of a sudden, this happens in an instant, and they're saying their life is over. And I just think, thank you again for doing this. We have to talk about it.
Give me first, from the law enforcement standpoint, what are, the best strategies being implemented here? Are there limitations that make this difficult to get at? Where are we in that process?
We need bodies. The BCA is very, very good at this. And if you ever want to learn more, go to the BCA website, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Drew Evans is the head of it. They do a great job on this, and so does the FBI. The National Center for Missing and Exploiting Children have resources, but we just don't have the bodies for this.
To prosecute,
to investigate, prosecute, and to get the word out. I want, if it was up to me, I'd be in every school in the state talking about this. One, people don't want you necessarily in their schools. I get it. And I don't know how to tell parents. Again, I'm a joy at a dinner party. I tell you, you got kids, you got a 15-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I talk about mood killers. That's what I want to talk about, because I want to protect every single one of these kids in our state.
All right, let's get a break. Lots more to get to. Andy Luger, kind enough to join us in studio, former Minnesota U.S. Attorney. Back with more and some good texts already coming in.
Life moves fast. A new home, a new baby, a new chapter. But without an estate plan, your future's still vulnerable. With Trust and Will, you can name guardians, start a trust, create healthcare directives, and more. All online in about an hour. It's attorney-designed, state-specific, and built to protect what you love. Plans start at just $199, and every plan is safe, secure, and kept completely private. From families with young kids to adults caring for aging parents, Trust and Will makes it simple to take control, without a law office, paperwork stress, or court delays. Go to trustandwill.com and use code RADIO to save 20%. Start your plan today. Don't wait for life to force your hand. Estate planning is one of the smartest, most loving things you can do. Trust and Will is an online estate planning service. See website for details.
Trust and Will.
Shout out to Sonos for supporting today's show. At home, whether I'm watching Monday Night Football or I'm flipping between all the games on Sunday, sound quality matters. And this is where Sonos comes in. Their speakers bring your sports experience and entertainment to life. So whether it's in your own home there, or you are out streaming music wherever you might be in your headphones, Sonos is the company for you. Sonos makes it easy to bring all your entertainment into every room in your home with their home theater speaker system. It's amazing. You want to feel like you're in the game, every crowd moment, every hit. Sonos speakers, that's the way to do it. Home theater cinematic sound, you want to bring those films to the next level. Guess what? That's how you do it. You got the Ace headphones too, amazing sound quality with crystal clear highs and powerful bass. You don't just hear the content in those headphones, you feel it. Trust me, I've got a pair, I know what I'm talking about. And you get up to 30 hours of battery, 3 hours of playback with a quick 3-minute charge. It doesn't get better than that. So if you're serious about great sound for football, podcasts, or music, you've got to check out Sonos. Visit Sonos.com to learn more and explore the full Sonos lineup.
Next here in the... in studio. We continue our discussion regarding these sextortion cases, whatever term you want to use for them. Part of the component is law enforcement, which we've at least scratched the surface on, but some of it is advice? And in many cases, I'm sure you had to meet with parents of victims of these sorts of things.
All the time.
Horrified
Yeah.
parents, I'm sure.
Yep.
So parents who are listening here, who are trying to figure out, okay, what messages do I need to deliver here? I don't want to send a message that indicates we're not going to hold you responsible if you go too far with your phone. On the other hand, how do you thread the needle on sending a stern message, but also a message that allows for the possibility that they will come to you as a kid rather than they keep it in to the point where they run off, or worst case scenario, perish the thought, they kill themselves? What's your best advice for parents?
So my thought is this, this phone, I would hold it up, and maybe I'll be able to do it with my grandson someday. This phone is both the greatest thing that can happen to you and the worst. This phone is a blessing and a curse, and it's a weapon. And if you use it right, it's fantastic. Knowledge, information, you name it. But there are people who will come at you through this phone, and they'll pretend to be your friends. They'll pretend to be somebody, and they're not. It's a scam financially, like I just got one today about a bill that I don't know, $72.20. So you get rid of that. And there's people who want to be your friends, and they want you to send them a picture, and they want you to engage in flirtatious talk. Don't do it. It's a weapon. However, if you ever find yourself in any kind of trouble because you get ensnared in something, or something happens, or your friends do, you sort of deflect it a little bit, come see me. I will never question you. So in the 70s, when I was a teenager and I got my first car, my 67 Oldsmobile, my father said to me, don't drink and drive. But if you ever find yourself, and nobody was saying this back then, you ever find yourself in a situation where you shouldn't drive, call me. No questions asked. I'll come get you. And he did. In his pajamas and his slippers and his robe, would come meet us somewhere, pile us in the car, and take all my friends home. And it's, I'll never forget that. And, it's a life lesson. This is more complicated, obviously.
Sure.
But drinking behind the Oldsmobile is a weapon. This phone can be a weapon, and don't let it happen. But if anything happens, you come see me right away. I'm on your side.
The story I mentioned in the lead of the Wetzel piece, the Jordan DeMay story. This is a kid out of Marquette, Michigan, and it's chilling the way Wetzel describes it, because there's that moment for Jordan DeMay when he's given all the money he can. He's got no more money. The guy on the other end is saying, well, too bad, counting it down. And you can almost hear the wheels turning in Jordan DeMay's head. He's downstairs in his house. He's got other relatives upstairs, but he obviously feels like he's in another world. He obviously feels like he doesn't have anybody to go to, that there's going to be too much shame and too much embarrassment, and he's gone. Yeah. It's just horrific.
And it's nothing against the parents. These poor parents going through absolute hell. Here's the problem. Every one of these kids that we talk to, and you can find stories online, they always start with, I thought my life was over. Because that's how you feel in that moment.
And that's what they're banking on.
And that's right. And they don't care, by the way. It's very clear they don't care. None of these people care. They'll move on to the next one. And so getting to kids and saying there is nothing that can happen to you that's worth it. And drumming that message home, some people would say you got to say it over and over and over again. I'm not the expert on this. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the BCA, the FBI, all have there are resources out there. If one parent listening to you right now, Dan, goes out and figures out, I need to learn how to talk to my kid about that, that's a victory. Because we do not talk about this as a society. You were shocked when you read that ESPN article. I was not.
Yeah, well, you've lived it. You've lived through it for quite some time. And to the, I guess, and you're reminding us in what you sent me, although this story had largely centered around male teenage boys, this isn't just related to boys at all. It's girls as well.
And what some of these guys make girls do, once they've got a girl ensnared and she's being extorted, and they talk about what they want to see on the video, it gets more and more blatant and horrific. And think about a girl now doing this
right.
and knowing it's on video and it can be disseminated. You guys touched on a point, which I thought was a good one, that we now have some laws that can require this stuff to be taken down. And NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, helps with that. But that doesn't address when I send it to your friends, because your friends get it directly. So there are not enough laws in the world to stop
Good
this.
point. Yeah.
It's really got to be done. As a society, we have to figure out a new way to communicate about this.
The individuals who engage in these activities, who extort this way, does it tend to be individuals, or are there gangs of are there folks who almost as a group work together and have sort of perfected this science? What were your experiences there?
The Nigerian groups are criminal gangs, and they're doing this as a group. But the people who pull this off here, the ones that say, go meet me in the park, those are individuals. And they're predators. And we've had child predators amongst us forever. It's just now they have new weapons. And they have new techniques. And they have lots more new victims. And it's just something that we just don't talk about. I tried when I was prosecutor.
You think it's just because it's such an uncomfortable conversation? Is that why?
I think there's a series of things. I think that's probably the most important. The others, it's hard to convince people that your good kid would do this. You know, when you and I were growing up, you could sort of tell the good kids from the bad kids, so to speak.
Right.
And, you know, the ones who do drugs and smoke cigarettes and whatever the hell they did. And then others. And those are the ones you could sort of, they'll get in trouble, maybe do some jail time or something. Now there's no distinction because the bad guys are going after anybody they can. And they sometimes pick out athletes. Sometimes they scroll through your social media. So if you're on social media saying, hey, my team played volleyball
So they're tracking all of this.
All of it. And girls volleyball in Hopkins, we won a big game, and they pick somebody out. And here's the text. Saw your game. I thought you looked cute. Good job winning. That last shot was great. You don't know me, but I'd love to get to know you. Boom. That's how it happens.
And we, at this point, probably can't convince every kid to just don't have any social media accounts. That might be a bit unrealistic at this point.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. That ship has probably sailed.
It's got to be protect yourself.
Yeah.
And again, we're not going to stop this completely. Trust me, I'll help you. I understand the world you live in. Please don't do this, or if you hear that your friends are doing it, talk to me. And that's the age-old solution to many of our problems. It's just heightened now. And it's so hard to talk to parents after when their kids have been victimized and hear what those kids are like and the therapy and and they look at me and they say, I had a perfect 14, 15-year-old kid. And now it's not the same. It's never going to be the same. And so, like I said, we've had predators amongst us forever, but it's now, it's on steroids.
A lot more systematic. All right, let's get one more break, then we'll have a long segment to wrap things up and maybe broaden out the subject, get into some other subject matter as well. Former U.S. Attorney Andy Luger in studio.
Life moves fast. A new home, a new baby, a new chapter. But without an estate plan, your future's still vulnerable. With Trust and Will, you can name guardians, start a trust, create healthcare directives, and more. All online in about an hour. It's attorney-designed, state-specific, and built to protect what you love. Plans start at just $199, and every plan is safe, secure, and kept completely private. From families with young kids to adults caring for aging parents, Trust and Will makes it simple to take control, without a law office, paperwork stress, or court delays. Go to trustandwill.com and use code RADIO to save 20%. Start your plan today. Don't wait for life to force your hand. Estate planning is one of the smartest, most loving things you can do. Trust and Will is an online estate planning service. See website for details.
Trust and Will.
Shout out to Sonos for supporting today's show. At home, whether I'm watching Monday Night Football or I'm flipping between all the games on Sunday, sound quality matters. And this is where Sonos comes in. Their speakers bring your sports experience and entertainment to life. So whether it's in your own home there or you are out streaming music wherever you might be in your headphones, Sonos is the company for you. Sonos makes it easy to bring all your entertainment into every room in your home with their home theater speaker system. It's amazing. You want to feel like you're in the game, every crowd moment, every hit. Sonos speakers, that's the way to do it. Home theater cinematic sound, you want to bring those films to the next level. Guess what? That's how you do it. You got the Ace headphones too, amazing sound quality with crystal clear highs and powerful bass. You don't just hear the content in those headphones, you feel it. Trust me, I've got a pair. I know what I'm talking about. And you get up to 30 hours of battery, 3 hours of playback with a quick 3-minute charge. It doesn't get better than that. So if you're serious about great sound for football, podcasts, or music, you've got to check out Sonos. Visit Sonos.com to learn more and explore the full Sonos lineup.
Back in a minute. Former U.S. Attorney Andy Luger is back in studio until the top of the hour. We'll be wrapping up a half hour early today for Lynx basketball. They are in New York to take on the Liberty tonight, and all the action coming up at the top of the hour here on the Fan. A principal guy has checked in, Andy. He writes, glad you are continuing this conversation. We heard Andy needing bodies. I and many retired school administrators would be interested in organizing and helping. Who can we contact to assist getting the word out on sextortion? I've had these discussions with parents and students of mine.
That's great. I think the right person to call, he may regret that I said this, but the right person to call is Drew Evans, who's the superintendent of the BCA, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And I think if you go on their website, there's probably a way to communicate, but I'll let him know that we did this and people were texting in. He's really, I think, the state's expert on this subject and very passionate about it.
Mike from Chaska writes, we need to normalize it like Wetzel says. You're a victim of a crime.
Right.
You can say it was AI, but thanks for talking about this and raising awareness at the local angle. And that's what we were talking about earlier about demystifying it, where you go, oh my God, there is no coming back from what you did. Your life is over. And you send that message too much, kids are going to believe it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. No, we do, demystify is a good word. The problem is I'm willing to bet most people just don't even know this exists. And that's why, when you were talking about it a week ago and I pulled over and I pulled up the ESPN, it took ESPN to get it on a lot of people's radar, and maybe that's the way it should be.
Dan, my son was caught up in this exact situation. This is out of area code 801 while he was in high school. I'm so thankful he felt he could come to me while it was happening. He sent some money, but the guy called, wanted more. We called the police, who came to the house, very professional, listened as the guy called back again, and then had him block the caller's number. They warned him that the pics might get out, but most times they don't.
Right.
We were very fortunate that nothing came of it. Kids, if this happens to you, do not react. Involve your parents and or the police.
Oh, good for that person.
So that works out well. That's a better story than some of those that we hear, unfortunately, but a lot of it is getting the word out, like you said. By the way, speaking of lawsuits, I think Keith Ellison today announced he is suing TikTok, arguing the company violated state consumer protection laws by designing a platform that's addicting and harmful to children. Now, my assumption is it gets a lot more specific than that, because there's a lot of them that do that. Do you know anything about this and what the chances are this could go somewhere?
Well, I don't know anything about it. There are attorneys general who are using sort of deceptive practices, Deceptive Trade Practices Act lawsuits to try to rein in certain types of behavior. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not a big believer in it. I think people create products and we use them or don't use them. It's kind of like suing gun manufacturers for creating a product that people want to use. So I don't know this particular one. I'll look at it, but that's not where I come from in terms of ways to fix societies.
Let's talk a little bit more about a subject I don't think you and I have talked much on the air about, but I've certainly talked about the reign of Mary Moriarty from time to time. She makes a big announcement, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, I don't recall, saying, I'm out. I don't want maybe I can just go about doing my job now. I don't want it to be because I'm she feels as if it's all about her and that she's quote unquote viewed as controversial. I have found her efforts in recent months to turn herself into a martyr to be very feeble. I don't buy it. I think most of the time people are responding to individual decisions just as they would anyone else that's in that position. But what is she the victim that she has made herself out to be?
Well, look, I think she's done a good job of saying what she was going to do, doing what she said in the campaign she was going to do, sticking by her principles, following them up. The problem is, and I found this too, when you say what you're going to do and then you do it, not everybody agrees. And maybe a lot of people don't agree, and they're going to come after you. And that's part of public life. When I say come after you,
yes,
I mean
right.
Verbally.
Challenging, yes.
And so, yeah, she's been the target of a lot of criticism because there are a lot of people who disagree with what she's doing. There are obviously people who agree with what she's doing. The good news, but what I respect is that she's not changing her mind. She's saying, this is what I believe we need to do. I think juveniles don't have the mental capacity that people think they do. And when they commit these crimes, they shouldn't go to prison. That's her view. I mean, I've just encapsulated in one sentence, but that's part of her view. People like me disagree. I disagree. It doesn't make her a bad person.
You've prosecuted many of them, correct?
So I don't take that view. But I can respect somebody who does. The question is, what do you do when people disagree? People disagree, they're going to disagree. They're allowed to say it, and they're allowed to be forceful. We're now going to have an election, I believe, with candidates who are going to line up on one side of this aisle or the other. It's a very clear aisle. There's the reformist lane that says a number of the things that she says. Somebody, I think Cedric Frazier, is going to fill that lane. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the county gets to decide, is this what we want in our prosecutor? Somebody who's been a defense lawyer, somebody who believes in these things versus somebody who's been a prosecutor. Should somebody like that run? And that's the choice I think we're going to end up having.
Are you interested in that position?
I was interested in that position a lot 20 years ago. I'm interested in that position for somebody else. As I've said, I think on this show, I want a younger generation to step up, and I will help them. I will help somebody who runs for this office with the kinds of beliefs that I have, not because I'm mad or going to demean the people in the other lane just because I disagree with it.
Let me give you an example of where I think I'm not willing as much as you to give her as much credit for doing what she said she was going to do. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. The Londrigan case, I felt, and talking to the attorneys I respected, who are usually pretty honest and don't have any desire to necessarily defend police automatically, said this is not a good case. And what struck me, it was instead of, okay, here's what I ran on, I'm going to hold bad cops or cops who cross the line responsible when they do it. However, it almost felt like, well, I'm going to pretend this is an example to prove my point, whether the facts in fact fit what she, allegedly ran on. That's to me an example of, it's not enough to say, well, she did exactly what she was going to do. To me, the obligation should be follow the law.
So I think it's a good point, and I'll say it this way. Any prosecutor who brings, in my mind, too much ideology to the job can end up in what we call confirmation bias. And prosecutors are taught to fight against confirmation bias. If everything's a brick of heroin to you, then everything's a brick of heroin. If everything is a bad cop, if everything is a cop violating civil rights, then that's what you see. And so you really need, if you have an ideology, you really need to step back. And so you can't want a case too much. It's one of the things when we used to sit around in my office as U.S. Attorney or the conference room and talk about a case, I always wanted to make sure we're not carried away with how much we believe in this case. What are the problems with this case? What are the defenses? What are we missing so that we don't overstep? And that's the danger of a case like that.
Texts continue to come in, and so please continue to pass along your thoughts, observations, and even questions for our in-studio guest, Andy Luger, till the top of the hour. 64686 is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line as well. We did get one much earlier that I read to you, I think, off air. Frustration that people have regarding simple car break-ins, right? We've had stretches where there's like 50 or 60 at a time. And I think there's some understanding that for law enforcement, this is a hell of a challenge to go after the bad guys as much as we want to see it happen. Is there another way? Is there a more clever strategy that might be more effective, or is there an answer? Is this just something we have to live with in 2025?
Well, we don't have to live with it. What we have to do is vastly increase the size of the Minneapolis Police Department. And I say that people get nervous, like, we have too many cops on the street. There was a time we had 900 cops on, sworn officers. We just cracked 600. So think about what those 300 others can be doing, plus the analysts. We talk about predators online with kids. Everything is digital now. So when you get a series of break-ins, somebody's looking at the cameras. Somebody's looking at the digital evidence. Somebody's finding a phone and tracking it back. Those behind-the-scenes analysts, we need many more of them. BCA, I keep going back to them, but they brought in analysts to help with violent crime in Minneapolis, and it helps tremendously. But we need to grow all of that knowledge and experience behind the scenes making the cases. That's how we're going to do a better job. We also have to continue to motivate our police department. We have a lot of new police officers, yes. And I've met the recruiting classes of the last few. They're tremendous. They're hungry. They want to do the right thing. They want to do a good job. They want to be part of the change. They all talk like that. So they're excited. Let's support them. Let's talk about them in humane ways, not some of the ways that we do talk about them.
You talk to a lot of people about subjects like these. What are you told about the morale of the police department at this point in general?
It's picking up tremendously. It's hurt whenever there's a blast coming from the city council or others just condemning the police out of hand, no discussion, no conversation, nothing. That's got to change. You can't build the police department of the future if you're constantly knocking them down. I happen to be very close friends with Brian O'Hara, the police chief, Minneapolis police chief. I think he's fantastic. I think we're lucky to have him. When Mayor Fry was first thinking about appointing him, I had police experts around the country calling me saying that's the Heisman Trophy winner of police chiefs if you get him, without the curse that we have of Heisman Trophy winners. And I think it's proven out. I think he's fantastic and needs to be supported, needs to feel it. I go out to dinner with him, and he's surrounded by people thanking him. That's what we need. So
I mentioned much earlier in this program that the council vice president, Aisha, and will you help me with the pronunciation?
I think it's Chutkai.
I think that's it as well. That's what I understood. I've seen it a couple of other times. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. So she shows up at a rally in which basically she does bleep Jacob Fry, bleep fascism, and bleep Donald Trump, and there's been a lot of blowback to that. I cracked earlier that if you have a city council that believes the mayor, whatever agreements or disagreements the council might have with him is a crackpot. He's like Barry Goldwater. They're missing the thread a little bit. And then I say to your question about more police or sending different messages, I just don't know that these days you have much of a chance of that, no matter what the mayor is trying to do, if the city council, or at least parts of the city council, are basically going down this particular road.
So when candidates want to talk to me about running local office, city council, park board, you name it, first question I ask them is about their tone. Are you going to take this job seriously? Are you going to treat it like an adult? And adults don't talk that way in public, and they don't talk that way as public officials. So don't do it. If that's what you want to do, that's fine, but I want nothing to do with it. We could talk about your policies on rent control, this, that, and the other thing. I want mature, upstanding adults who are going to treat this seriously and take it seriously. Never in my lifetime did I think we would have elected officials talking that way. And, you know, by the way, Barry Goldwater, I would take him in an instant today as a liberal Democrat.
That might be, that might have been a bad example, but it was just to try to make a point.
Yep.
I know what you're saying, and I mentioned this to you off air, that as soon as I address this subject, because it's new, regarding the city council member, I get 10 texts, how dare you, the man in the White House, daily offers rhetoric as bad or worse. And it's deflating because, in effect, it doesn't allow us to have any kind of meaningful discussion about, quote unquote, our side, because, well, they're doing it. And I don't know what your best advice is to those individuals who immediately, instead of addressing this subject today, want to quickly turn it to, but what about that guy?
Yeah, we have to have standards. And the standards should apply to everybody, not just, you know, the other side or your side. You hold everybody to standards, and you hold your best friends to standards. And you might be a supporter of this council member because you believe in what she believes in. That's great. But that doesn't excuse this. And we need to raise the level of discourse in this country. We need to raise the level of interaction in this country. And that should be for everybody.
Back to one point.
How's that? That's my view.
I think it's fair. Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, and my guess is a lot of people agree. Back to Moriarty on one point. Yep. She has said in recent days or recent weeks that the policies she has implemented when it comes to younger crime individuals who commit crimes, that the crime numbers indicate on carjackings, for example, they're actually going down, and she is viewing that as proof that her approach is successful. I have said, and it's probably an unfair question to ask you, but I've said, well, maybe some, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that your tough prosecutions prior might have had a bigger impact on numbers that everybody profited from, including Mary Moriarty, to which you say what?
You got to go hand in hand. I agree with all the intervention work. Frankly, most people in law enforcement do.
Yes.
Across the board, Democrats and Republicans. This stuff's been studied forever. All the intervention work is great. And I applaud it, and I did it as U.S. Attorney, and I supported it. You got to do it along with the prosecutions, though. And that's just not me saying that. That's what the studies say. Swift, certain consequences matter to people who commit crimes. But I also saw it when I met with criminals. I met with gang leaders. I met with not gang leaders, gang members.
Right.
And I talked. One guy said to me, "We call this mini lawless." That was back in 2022 when I first started this second round as U.S. Attorney. I said, well, it's not anymore. And I started talking about the sentences we would get, and I started talking about the RICO law, and his face just dropped. And he said, I don't want any part of that. Are you really going to do that? Because people talk that way. I said, watch. And that matters. It's not the only solution. People talk about soft on crime, tough on crime. You got to do everything. And that's where, you know, when you talk about the results, I think the results are all of this put together. But there's no question in my mind that we showed people it's a serious felony to commit a carjacking, and you're going to prison for 5 or more years in federal prison. That matters.
Yeah, well, that message never came from Mary Moriarty. Now, again, she's not Fed. I get that, but that declaration never came from her office.
She doesn't. As far as I can tell, she doesn't believe it.
Yeah, right.
So it would be phony for her to say it, just like it would be phony for me to say the opposite.
But I'm saying for her to pretend, then it's almost like she's trying to take credit for something she's not willing to say, even though clearly those prosecutions played a significant part in the change taking place here. That's me speaking. I'm in the middle of it.
I don't know.
That's you in a tougher spot.
I got along with her very well when I was U.S. Attorney. I continue to get along with her. I congratulated her on her decision. She's taking a tough road, and it's not one I agree with, but that she's taking.
When you mention when Democrats come to you, I won't even say maybe not just Democrats, with questions about, okay, I might want to run for a position or whatever, and looking perhaps for some advice from you just on the basis of your experience. What is the best advice? In this case, I am asking about Democrats because the Republicans are the ones in power in the White House. Trump is the one making the crime issue a big issue at this point. And I was talking with Gerald Posner earlier, the writer, and I said, I think this is tricky. There's a trap for Democrats if they fall into fighting anything that is perceived as dealing with crime issues. So again, I view you as a Democrat who tries to strike a balance on this issue, but a balance that includes not being afraid of saying where and when we have crime issues, we need to deal with those issues and not apologize for it.
It starts with knowing what the issues are. What are the issues? We talk about crime and without, out in the ether, but what is it? Is it carjackings? Is it shootings? Is it gangs? Is it drugs? Then you talk about the strategies. I do tell this to candidates. First, identify in your community what are the crime issues, then talk about what the resources are or not to address them, and then talk about the strategies. Know your sheriff, know your police chief. If it's federal, if you're running for Congress, know your FBI and ATF and DEA. Know who they are, know what their strategies are, and talk about that. That's concrete as opposed to crime. And therefore, no, that's not partisan. I did it. The U.S. attorneys I worked with around the country under President Obama all did it. We were focused heavily on violent crime. So nobody owns this issue. And I think that's where sometimes Democrats fall asleep.
Now the most important question, are you a devoted follower of the Great Minnesota Get Together, the Minnesota State Fair? Now, you're not one of us. We know that. But have you been here long enough where you find this cultural phenomenon worthy of your attention and your appearance?
I find it worthy of a lot of people's attention and their appearance.
It's a very, very direct answer. Actually, I asked, didn't I?
I'll be home listening to you from the fair, and God bless you for doing it.
I appreciate you coming in. It's always a pleasure. Andy Luger, former U.S. attorney. Music, because we're out a half hour early today. Minnesota Lynx basketball is coming up. We are back in studio tomorrow, our last day before the fair. The Honorable Alan Page will be in the very chair that Andy Luger is now sitting in. We'll catch up with him on number of fronts, I should say, and get to some other stuff as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you tomorrow, as I said, at 3 o'clock.
Well, see you later.
A lot of things that are easily correctable